Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that's really important to me, and it's a topic that I've really wanted to address for a long time, and I really wasn't sure how to approach it. And then one of my recent videos, a lovely viewer posted such a great question, and for some reason it just clicked with me, and I was like, okay, we're doing it and we're making this video. And the topic we're talking about today is about decluttering, but it's beyond the declutter. It's the aftermath of the declutters. After you've decluttered, how do you stop yourself from replacing those things? And I just thought, wow, that's such a great question, because I think that's something that we all struggle with. And buying things is something that we do on a daily basis, whether it be diapers or groceries or clothes for your kids to replace as they grow. It could be gas. It's just one of those things that we do on a daily basis that we don't always give that much thought to. But where we do get into trouble is when you continue to buy things because you love it, or because it's cute, or because you think you're going to use it, or because you think it's going to fill a void, or maybe just because you're bored, or maybe you were influenced because you saw someone else have something and you're like, oh my God, I need that too. And it's all those things that kind of swirl into our heads and then mesh into our everyday decision making that we then kind of give less thought to. And so I really wanted to touch on that. And I feel like having this conversation is going to be really important, because it's going to raise some questions for you as it does for me, and hopefully make some behavioral changes for the better that will serve you better, and financially and just mentally too. So, okay, so you've decluttered. Now what? The big question is, what do you do after that? And I think the big question is, do you replace those things? Well, if those are things that you have used and you're replacing because it broke, and it really does serve a purpose to your daily life, then sure, I think those things are worth replacing. But outside of that, I think what you have to do is become a lot more discerning about the things that you decide you're going to bring into the house and what you're going to buy. Part of making those changes is to really change your perspective. And I'm going to share with you some long-term perspective changes and questions to ask yourself, but also I'm going to share with you some short-term solutions too, because at the end of the day, these things take time, and I think it's really important to recognize that these are not overnight changes that we're going to make. So let's go through some of the long-term perspective changes and questions that we should ask ourselves. One of the many things to think about as you make perspective changes is, what are your personal values and what's important to you? In other words, it's addressing the question of why. Why do you want to make these changes? And I think the why really has a lot to do with what your personal values are. And so let's go through some of those right now. So in no particular order, I'm going to go through some of the questions and things that we can ask ourselves as we evaluate what aligns with our personal values. Now today, I'll be talking in context to handbags, but I really think this applies across so many categories, not just handbags. So just fill in the blank and replace the word handbag with shoes, clothes, tech gadgets, kitchen gadgets, mugs, all of those things. And I think they're all going to be very applicable to you. So the first really important thing to determine and assess is, how much physical space do you actually have? Most of us are very limited in how much physical space we have to accommodate handbags in this case. And so you don't want to be bursting at the seams. You don't want to have clutter all over the place. Presumably, most of us declutter because you ran out of physical space to accommodate said handbags. I think that's a very discerning way of thinking about how to stop replacing handbags or said mug or tech gadget or whatever it is, because you really have to ask yourself, do I have the physical space for it and accommodate it? But more importantly, the way that you can be discerning about it is this new handbag worthy of taking up space, valuable real estate space in my closet or in my shelf or whatever it is. And that's just a really black and white way of thinking about it. Another really important factor and obvious thing to think about is your personal finances and your budget. When you set yourself a budget for whatever that vice is that you want to buy, that you love collecting or enjoying, then having clear financial parameters is something that's really important to determine. I can appreciate that everyone's financial situation is different, everyone's financial budgets are different, and everyone's priorities are different. But everyone probably has that one thing or a few things that you really enjoy buying, whether it be handbags or whether it be kitchen gadgets or whatever it is, right? So if you can set yourself a budget, a clear financial budget of what you are allowing yourself to spend on, then number one, you can enjoy that purchase without the guilt because you've already set your financial parameters and boundaries of what you're allowing yourself to spend on. And so for me, I have a very separate account of fun money, I suppose you can call it, where I just allocate that money for personal discretionary spending. And I know exactly how much I have in there, and I know that there is only a set amount in there. So by having that separate account really separates for me what is considered discretionary fun spending and guilt-free. And let's face it, when you want to buy something nice for yourself, you want to be able to enjoy it without the guilt. Once you've decluttered, I think a lot of us ask the question of quality versus quantity. And I think a lot of us will probably say that quality is better than having more things. So I think it's safe to say that probably a lot of us will agree that having maybe, for instance, 3 or 4 really quality knits is much better than having 10 or 15 janky knits. It takes up a lot less physical space, but also mental space to choose quality over quantity. Asking yourself if you want to just live a more streamlined or simple life is also another personal value question to ask yourself. Another personal value question that I ask myself all the time, and because I lived through it firsthand, because I recently did move, and it really made you evaluate, do you want to bring this stuff to your new house? So even if you're not moving and you ask yourself this question, it can be really powerful. So before you bring something in or make a purchase, you ask yourself, would I want to move this with me to a brand new, beautiful space? And is it worth packing up? Is it worth dusting around? Those are the types of questions that I ask myself because it really does put you in a place of, wait a minute, if I could start all over again, is this something that I want to bring with me? Is this something I want to add to my new life? And that's a very powerful question. Another really powerful question that I have also lived through firsthand is something called the Swedish death cleaning. And I know that sounds really morbid. I did touch on this on our old video previously, but I do want to bring it up again because I think it is so, so important. I think this probably applies more to people of a certain age, maybe more my age. If you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe less so in your 20s or 30s, but it is something to think about nonetheless, no matter what age you're in. Swedish death cleaning is really, in a nutshell, the premise that when you get to a certain age in middle life, you start thinking about letting go of the things that don't matter to you and literally cleaning your house and getting rid of the things that don't serve you and you don't want or care about. And I will say that I lived through this firsthand and it affected me so profoundly. And I think if you have ever lost a loved one, like a parent especially, or a close family member, where you had to clean out their house, it's a very daunting process. It's a very heavy thing to do physically, labor-wise, but also emotionally. And the last thing I want to do is leave a house full of things for my loved ones, whether it be my husband or my kids, with all the crap that even I didn't care about. So do your family a favor. It's the greatest gift of all, is to get rid of things that don't serve you, that you don't care about. If you have a basement, attic, and closet full of things that you just honestly don't care about, just get rid of them now. Because the truth is that you don't know if you're gonna get hit by a bus tomorrow. God forbid anything happens to your health. And you probably don't wanna leave the burden of leaving those things to your family members to clean out. What you want to be left with are the things that you actually did care about, things that you cherished, and those are the things that you physically surrounded yourself with. I know it's so much easier said than done, and it's not an overnight process. It is something that I do think about regularly as I declutter, and I think it's so important to think about for other people. So really the bottom line is, as you bring in new things into your house, the question is this something I really care about deeply? Or is this just something that I'm liking in the moment and really doesn't mean that much to me and will eventually get thrown out, if not by me, then by my family member? Another personal value question to ask yourself is, do you care about the environment where you want to contribute less to overall waste and you want to do your part in helping the environment? And that's a very valid question to ask if that's something that's important to you. Another great question to ask yourself that I think a lot of us deal with on a daily basis is, do you have too many choices? Do you have too many of the same things that you're being bogged down by decision fatigue? Having less decision fatigue is something that's gonna allow you to have more energy towards something else that's more important. Also, bringing in less things is a way to live a little bit more peacefully. Having so many things around us, whether it's in your closet, just because it's out of sight, it's not out of mind. And that's very, very true. When you have too many things, it really does clutter your mind. And so is that something that's important to you as you think about what you're bringing into the house? Do you want to stop the cycle of buying and accumulating? And it's kind of like the cycle of rinse and repeat. Like at some point when we declutter, we do ask ourselves, do I want to continue this cycle of decluttering all this stuff all the time? Or maybe it's as simple as you just want to break a bad habit of buying, accumulating, really just shopping in the moment. It's that momentary burst of happiness where you see something cute, where you see something fun, where you see something that someone else has and you're like, oh my God, I really want that, I need that. Or maybe you think because it's on sale or it's affordable that it's not a big deal, or because it's cute and it doesn't take up too much space. But then fast forward 5 to 10 years from now and you've bought all the things that you thought was cute in the moment, and now you have all these things that really don't serve you and really were just momentary bursts of pleasure. That's a really easy way to go down that rabbit hole because it just becomes a habit of buying everything that's cute. And the bottom line is you really don't have to buy everything that's cute. You can appreciate things on the shelf at the store and be like, that's cute, and I'm gonna enjoy this moment of just loving its cuteness, and then just walking past it too. And then just leaving it in the store and saying, thank you for bringing me joy in the store. And I can totally understand and appreciate that's a hard habit to break. I still struggle through that. Sometimes I might walk in a HomeSense because I'm trying to kill time and I'm like, oh, this is so cute. Or like, of course, the seasonal things when it comes to Christmas decorations and decor. I love that because I love Christmas and I love all things Christmas. Or maybe you're like, oh, this is such a cute gift for someone, even though you don't have anyone to gift it to right at this moment. It's those sorts of things where we get into a bad habit of buying things. Having a significant life event can also reshape the way you reprioritize things, and whether or not you think buying something and bringing something new into your life is going to add any value. And a lot of times that could be a health scare, that could be a death in the family, that could be a baby in the family, that could be a divorce. All of those things can really reprioritize our need to want to buy new things and bring things into our house. And so I think that's something that naturally happens to a lot of us. Now, I will say that these are all questions that I've asked myself that have caused me to make big lifestyle changes and really reassess what I'm buying and bringing into the house after I've decluttered. At the end of the day, I really do want to live more simply, but I also don't want to compromise the quality of life that I'm living, which is why I have to really think about these things from a personal value perspective. I've made a video somewhere along the lines of some of these things, basically lessons that I finally learned in my mid-40s, and I'll link that video up here if you're interested in seeing it. I think a lot of those are personal value things that still ring true and still have a little bit of overlap on the topic that we're talking about here today. But knowing what your why is really the ultimate question to ask yourself in order to make behavioral changes that will ultimately lead to lifestyle changes. And lifestyle changes are ultimately sustainable changes that are realistic to your own life. So those are some of the long-term questions to ask yourself to make those long-term lifestyle changes, but that doesn't really answer the question of how do I make those immediate changes today? How do I stop the impulse buying now? And how do I make those changes straight away? The first immediate way is to have patience. If you're buying online, put it in your cart and just walk away. Forget about it, go about your life and business, and wait for that wave of desire and that sense of urgency to buy that thing now. Wait for that to pass, because it will pass. And it might be you need a good night's sleep for that to pass, or you might need a good week or even month or a few months for that feeling to pass, depending on what that item is. But once that sense of urgency has passed, you feel a lot more centered. You have a much clearer head to make a better decision on whether or not to buy that thing. And if that thing that you ended up wanting ends up being sold out, well, the consolation prize is, oh, well, that's money saved and I can put that towards something else. Or you can think of it as, oh, well, it wasn't meant to be. Or another way to think about it is, I'll find something better, because let's face it, something better will always come along and chances are you'll love it even more. Or even better, that feeling will dissipate, it got sold out, and then you never thought of it again because it was just in that moment anyway. And that's such a great feeling to be like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't buy that. Because the honest truth is, when you feel that impulsive sense of urgency to buy something, everything seems like a good idea, doesn't it? So you gotta let that feeling pass and feel a lot more centered and feel a lot more grounded before you can make that decision. Another way to shop less mindlessly is to create a wish list. And I know that's very common advice, but it's true. Once you write things down, you can see things on a list, you're able to prioritize things in a way that's more important to you based on what you can do on your budget. So when you're putting things on a wish list and prioritizing things, you are buying things with more purpose. Another question to always have on the forefront of your mind is, do I have something similar? Do I have something that will fill the same need and do the same thing? And oftentimes we forget about what's in our closets, we forget about what we have. Sometimes having a picture of, let's say, if it's your handbag collection, that's really helpful in knowing, do I have a bag that's very similar to that? Because chances are if you have too many of the same things, then you're just competing with each other and you will favor one over the other and the other will get less used. But when you have, again, less decision fatigue, that's a really good thing, and knowing what you have will be really helpful in making that decision. And finally, one of the most important things I think in today's day and age is really being conscious of what kind of social media content you're taking in. I can totally appreciate a good unboxing video. It's fun to see what other people are getting, but if you're the type of person who lets that bleed into your decision making, that can be a problem sometimes. So being conscious of what type of content you're taking in, if you are being overwhelmed by influencers, unboxing tons of things, tons of shopping hauls, tons of new in, and all of those sorts of things, and that's bleeding into your decision making, and often it does because it's a subconscious thing that happens, let yourself be the one to decide if you like something or not. Because so often what you see on social media and, influencers are that they are trying to make fetch happen all the time.
So fetch. Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
For instance, who said that the Margot bag is the next Birkin bag? I think an influencer said that and then tried to make fetch happen. And I don't think any of us would have thought that if someone didn't say that. So someone says that and then it gets repeated by someone else on social media and then you keep hearing it and now you're like, oh my God, the Margot bag is the next Birkin bag, I need to get it. And it's not about the Margot bag.
It's not about the pasta. It's not about the pasta.
If you like the Margot bag, then that's perfectly fine. But if you like the Margot bag because someone said that's the next it bag, then maybe you don't really like it. And so that's something that's kind of tricky, and it's kind of a mind game sometimes. And social media can be kind of a mind game because it does slip into your subconscious. So just being aware of that is something that I think is really important, because let yourself influence what you like or not, let your lifestyle influence what you like or not, let your personal style influence what you like or not. Those are way more important than what people on social media are telling you. So those are really the questions that I would ask myself, long-term and short-term. At the end of the day, I think it's really important to be kind to yourself. This is a process. It's something I think that we all struggle with in one way or another. It's trial and error. We're gonna make mistakes. If you bought something that you regret, then just return it if you can. And if you can't, well, then you live and learn, and we're all doing that. So be kind to yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. It is a struggle, and it is a process that I'm still working through, but it does become easier when you ask yourself some of these questions and you align them with your personal values. And your values are going to be different from the next person and from mine and from your neighbors. And that's important to recognize to make those long-term changes. So I really hope you got some value out of this video. It's a topic that is really important for me personally, and I hope that it made you think about things a little bit differently and ultimately may lead to some positive changes into your own lives. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful or enjoyed it in any way, I would really love it if you gave it the thumbs up. That would really help my small channel out. If you want to watch any of my other videos, you can do that here, and I will see you next time.